Have you ever noticed how the mind can ruin a perfectly peaceful moment? Nothing bad is happening. You are safe. Your day is normal. But suddenly, your mind begins to imagine problems. What if something goes wrong tomorrow? What if I fail? What if people judge me? What if everything falls apart? And within seconds, the mind has created an entire storm out of nothing. Your heart feels heavy. Your thoughts begin racing, and peace quietly disappears. But here is something strange most people never realize. If you look back at your life carefully, you may notice something shocking. Most of the things you once worried about never actually happened. The disaster you feared, the situation you thought would destroy everything, the future your mind kept warning you about. Most of those storms never arrived, and yet the mind keeps creating them again and again. Buddhist wisdom has spoken about this for centuries. The uncontrolled mind is like a storyteller that constantly predicts danger. It pulls you into a future that does not exist and forces you to suffer today. And once you see this clearly, something powerful begins to change. The worries that once controlled your mind start losing their power. The fears that once felt real begin to dissolve. Today, we are going to uncover 7 powerful truths about worry that can completely change the way you see your thoughts. And by the end of this video, you may realize something deeply freeing. Most of the things your mind is afraid of will never actually happen. The invisible prison of other people's opinions. One of the heaviest worries people carry in life is the fear of what other people might think. It begins quietly in the mind. A small thought appears, and suddenly the mind starts imagining judgment everywhere. What will they say about me? Will they criticize my choices? Will they think I failed? Will they see my mistakes? Slowly, these thoughts begin shaping the way a person lives. Someone stops speaking their true thoughts. Someone holds back their dreams. Someone avoids opportunities that could change their life. Not because something bad actually happened, but because the mind imagined that it might. Many people live inside this invisible pressure every day. They choose their actions carefully, constantly trying to avoid criticism, embarrassment, or rejection. But if you look closely at the world around you, you will begin to notice something very surprising. Most people are not thinking about you nearly as much as you believe. Everyone is busy living inside their own mind. They are worrying about their own problems, their own insecurities, their own future. The person you believe is judging you may actually be worrying about how others see them. This is one of the quiet truths about human life. Almost everyone is too focused on themselves to spend much time analyzing someone else's life. Yet the mind creates a powerful illusion. It makes you feel as if a crowd is watching you, evaluating every decision you make. But that crowd mostly exists only inside your imagination. Buddhist wisdom teaches that attachment to reputation is one of the hidden causes of suffering. When your peace depends on how others see you, your happiness becomes fragile and unstable, because opinions change. People misunderstand, and sometimes people judge without knowing the full story. If your peace depends on their approval, your peace will constantly rise and fall. But the moment you see this clearly, something powerful begins to change inside you. You realize that you do not need permission to live your life honestly. You do not need universal approval to follow your path. And suddenly, the invisible prison begins to open. You stop performing for the approval of others. You stop shrinking yourself to fit someone else's expectations. Instead, you begin living with quiet honesty. You speak more freely. You walk more confidently. You become less afraid of being misunderstood. And with that freedom, and something beautiful returns to your life. Peace. Because the moment you stop carrying the weight of other people's imagined opinions, your mind becomes lighter than it has been in years. The future disasters. The mind keeps inventing. Another powerful way the mind creates worry is by imagining disasters that have not happened yet. The moment the mind begins thinking about the future, it often does not imagine peace. Instead, it starts predicting problems. A small thought appears, and suddenly the mind begins building a story. What if everything goes wrong? What if I fail? What if people reject me? What if something bad happens tomorrow? These thoughts may start quietly, but the more attention we give them, the bigger they become. Soon the mind is no longer simply thinking about the future. It is creating entire scenes of difficulty and failure. The strange thing is that none of these situations are actually happening in the present moment. They exist only inside the mind. Yet the body reacts as if they are real. The heart begins to beat faster. The chest feels tight. Sleep becomes harder. Peace slowly disappears. This is one of the great tricks of the mind. It can create fear from events that do not even exist. Buddhist wisdom teaches that the mind often confuses imagination with reality. When we believe every thought without questioning it, the mind becomes a factory of unnecessary suffering. Think about your own life for a moment. How many times have you worried deeply about something that later turned out to be simple? Maybe you feared a difficult conversation that ended peacefully. Or maybe you worried about a situation that eventually solved itself. Maybe you spent days imagining the worst outcome, only to discover that nothing serious happened at all. This happens far more often than people realize. The mind is very skilled at predicting danger, but it is often very wrong. It creates storms that never arrive. And while those storms exist only in imagination, the stress they create feels very real. This is why many people spend large parts of their life worrying about a future that never unfolds the way they feared. Buddhist teachings remind us that the future is always uncertain, but uncertainty does not automatically mean danger. Most of the time, life unfolds in ways we cannot fully predict. And very often things turn out much better than the mind expected. When you begin to notice how the mind invents future disasters, something important happens. You stop believing every fearful thought immediately. Instead of letting the mind run freely into worst-case scenarios, you pause and observe the thought. You ask yourself a simple question: is this actually happening right now? Most of the time, the honest answer is no. And when you realize that the danger exists only in imagination, the mind begins to relax. The future will always remain unknown, but worrying about it endlessly does not protect you. It only steals the peace you could be experiencing today. When the mind stops creating disasters that do not exist, the present moment suddenly becomes much lighter. And that is where true peace begins. Like the exhausting illusion of controlling everything, another quiet source of worry comes from the belief that we must control everything in life. The mind tells us that if we plan carefully enough, think hard enough, and prepare for every possibility, we will be able to prevent problems from happening. So the mind begins trying to control every detail. It tries to control outcomes. It tries to control situations. It even tries to control how other people think, behave, and respond. At first, this may seem like a responsible way to live. Planning and thinking ahead are useful in many situations, but the problem begins when the mind believes it must control everything in order to feel safe. Life simply does not work that way. No matter how carefully we plan, life continues to unfold in ways we cannot fully predict. The unexpected changes appear, People behave differently than we expected. Situations move in directions we did not imagine. And when the mind cannot control these things, worry begins to grow. The mind starts asking endless questions. What if things don't go according to plan? What if I cannot fix the situation? What if everything falls apart? Slowly the mind becomes exhausted from trying to manage every possible outcome. This is why people who constantly try to control everything often feel the most stressed. They are fighting a battle that cannot be won. Buddhist wisdom teaches that life is shaped by impermanence. Everything is always changing. Events arise and pass away beyond our full control. Trying to control the entire flow of life is like trying to control the movement of the ocean. The more you fight the waves, the more tired you become. Yet the moment you stop resisting the water and learn how to float, something changes. The struggle disappears. This does not mean we should stop making wise decisions or taking responsibility for our actions. There are many things we can influence through effort, patience, and wisdom. But there is also a large part of life that must simply be allowed to unfold. Peace begins when we recognize the difference between what we can guide and what we must accept. When the mind stops trying to control everything, a great amount of pressure disappears. You no longer feel responsible for every possible outcome. You focus on doing your best in the present moment and allow the rest of life to move naturally. And when you live this way, the mind becomes lighter. And instead of constantly worrying about controlling the future, you begin trusting the flow of life. And with that trust, something very valuable returns to you. Calmness. The past. Mistakes the mind refuses to release. Another heavy burden many people carry is the constant habit of replaying the past. The mind goes back again and again to moments that have already ended. It remembers a mistake. It remembers something embarrassing. It remembers a decision that did not turn out the way we hoped. And then the mind begins asking painful questions. Why did I say that? Why did I make that decision? What if I had chosen differently? What if I had acted in another way? These thoughts can repeat themselves for days, months, or even years. The mind keeps reopening the same memory, as if there is something new to discover there. But the truth is simple. The past is already finished. No amount of worrying can change a moment that has already passed. Yet the mind continues returning to those memories again and again, carrying guilt, regret, and self-criticism. This habit slowly drains peace from the present moment. Buddhist wisdom teaches that attachment to the past is one of the quiet causes of suffering. The mind clings to events that no longer exist in reality. It holds on to old stories about who we were, what we did, and what we should have done differently. But life is always moving forward. The person you were yesterday is not exactly the same person you are today. You have learned. You have grown. You have gained new understanding through experience. Many of the mistakes that once felt overwhelming slowly lose their importance as time passes. A lot of people forget. Situations change. Life continues unfolding in new directions. Yet the mind sometimes refuses to release those old moments. It keeps replaying them, believing that holding on will somehow fix the past. But holding on only creates more pain. True freedom appears the moment you allow the past to remain where it belongs. In the past, every human life contains mistakes. Every person has moments they wish they could change. But those moments are also teachers. They show us where we can grow. They help us become wiser. They guide us toward better choices in the future. When you begin seeing your past not as a prison, but as a lesson, the weight of regret begins to disappear. The mind stops fighting with memories that cannot be changed. Instead, it returns its attention to the present moment. here where life is still alive and full of possibility. And in that moment, peace quietly returns, because the past no longer has the power to disturb the mind. The silent poison of comparing your life to others. Another quiet source of worry that steals peace from many people is the habit of comparing their life to the lives of others. The mind does this almost automatically. You see someone who seems more successful, someone who appears happier, someone who seems to have achieved more in less time. And slowly, without even realizing it, the mind begins asking uncomfortable questions. Why am I not there yet? Why is their life better than mine? Am I falling behind? At first, these thoughts may seem small, but the more attention they receive, the heavier they become. Comparison slowly turns life into a silent competition. Instead of appreciating your own path, the mind keeps measuring your progress against someone else's journey. And this is where worry begins to grow, because there will always be someone who appears to have more, achieve more, or move faster. The mind forgets something very important. You are only seeing a small part of someone else's life. You see their success, but not the years of struggle behind it. You see their happiness, but not the private battles they may be facing. You see their results, but not the sacrifices they had to make. In reality, every human life carries both visible achievements and invisible challenges. Buddhist wisdom reminds us that every person walks a unique path, shaped by countless conditions. Different families, different opportunities, different timing, different experiences. Because of these differences, no two lives can unfold in exactly the same way. Yet the mind keeps creating suffering by comparing journeys that were never meant to be identical. When comparison becomes a habit, it slowly destroys contentment. Nothing ever feels like enough. Even when good things happen in your life, the mind may still look somewhere else and feel dissatisfied. But the moment you step out of comparison, something powerful happens. You begin seeing your life clearly. You begin recognizing your own progress, your own lessons, your own growth. You begin appreciating how far you have already come, instead of focusing only on how far someone else appears to be. Buddhist teachings often speak about the beauty of contentment. Contentment does not mean giving up on growth or ambition. It simply means learning to walk your path without constantly measuring it against someone else's. When you understand that your journey is unfolding at its own natural pace, the pressure disappears. You stop rushing. You stop doubting yourself. You stop worrying about whether you are ahead or behind. Instead, you begin focusing on the only life you can truly live, your own. And when the mind stops comparing, a quiet kind of peace begins to grow. A peace that comes from accepting your path exactly as it is. The imaginary problems that steal today's peace. Another way the mind creates unnecessary suffering is by worrying about problems that do not even exist yet. The mind has a strange habit of jumping ahead into the future and creating difficulties before they arrive. A quiet moment appears, and suddenly the mind begins asking questions. What if something goes wrong tomorrow? What if a problem appears next week? What if life becomes harder later? The mind begins building situations that are not real. It imagines obstacles, conflicts, failures, and unexpected difficulties. And before anything has even happened, worry has already taken control. This is one of the most common patterns of the human mind. Instead of living in the present moment, the mind travels into a future that does not yet exist and begins trying to solve problems that may never appear. But the strange thing is that most of these imagined problems never actually happen. Think about how many times you have worried about something that later turned out to be much easier than you expected. Maybe you feared a difficult day that ended peacefully. But maybe you expected a problem that never arrived. Maybe you imagined a situation that solved itself without much effort. The mind often prepares for battles that never take place. Buddhist teachings often remind us that the present moment is the only place where life truly exists. The past is gone. The future has not yet arrived. But worry pulls the mind away from the present and traps it inside imagined futures. And while those futures may never become real, the stress created by imagining them is very real. It steals the calm that could have been experienced right now. It drains energy that could have been used to live, learn, and grow. Another interesting truth about life is that human beings are far more capable than they believe. When real challenges appear, people often discover strength they did not know they had. They adapt, they learn, they find solutions. But when the mind constantly tries to solve problems that do not exist yet, it becomes exhausted. Instead of using energy wisely, it wastes that energy fighting shadows. Peace begins to return when you stop trying to solve every possible future problem in advance. Life does not require you to be ready for everything today. It simply asks you to face each moment as it arrives. When a challenge appears, you will respond. When a problem arises, you will find a way through it, just as you have done many times before. But until that moment arrives, there is no need to carry the weight of something that has not even happened. When the mind learns to stay present instead of fighting imaginary problems, a deep sense of calm begins to grow, and in the present moment finally becomes the peaceful place it was always meant to be. The lie that you are not ready for life's challenges. One of the deepest worries people carry is the quiet belief that they are not ready for what life may bring. The mind whispers this fear in many different ways. What if something difficult happens and I cannot handle it? What if I fail when the moment arrives? What if I am not strong enough, not wise enough, not prepared enough? These thoughts slowly create a feeling of doubt inside the mind. A person may begin to believe that they must become perfectly ready before they face life's challenges. They feel they must gain more knowledge, more confidence, more certainty before they can move forward. But life has never worked that way. No one is ever completely ready for the future, though every person who has ever grown stronger in life did so by walking into situations they were not fully prepared for. Buddhist wisdom reminds us that life itself is the teacher. Growth does not happen before the experience. Growth happens through the experience. Many people forget how much strength they have already developed through the challenges they faced in the past. Think about moments in your own life. There were situations that once seemed frightening, moments when you felt uncertain, times when you believed you might not be able to handle what was happening. Yet somehow, you moved through those moments. You found solutions. You learned new lessons. You became stronger than you were before. What once felt overwhelming eventually became a part of your story. And with each experience, your understanding of life quietly expanded. But the mind often forgets these victories. Instead, it focuses on future difficulties and tells a familiar story. You are not ready. This belief can quietly hold people back from opportunities that could transform their lives. Someone may avoid taking a new step forward because they feel unprepared. Someone may delay an important decision because they fear they are not capable enough. Yet the truth is simple. Most of the abilities you will need in the future will develop only when the situation arrives. Strength appears when it is required. Wisdom grows through experience. Confidence increases through action. Buddhist teachings often emphasize the power of trust. Not blind trust in perfect outcomes, but trust in your ability to face whatever life brings. When you stop believing the mind story that you must be completely ready, something powerful happens. You become willing to move forward despite uncertainty. You stop waiting for perfect confidence. You begin trusting your ability to learn, adapt, and grow. Life has a quiet way of preparing you while you walk the path. Step by step, experience by experience, challenge by challenge. And when the moment arrives that once seemed frightening, you often discover something surprising. You are far stronger than the mind believed. The truth is that life does not require perfection. It simply asks you to keep moving, learning, and growing. And when you trust that process, the fear of not being ready slowly disappears. In its place, something far more powerful appears. Courage. Take a moment and breathe slowly. Look at your life for a second. How many nights did you spend worrying about something that never actually happened? How many times did your mind create storms that never reached your shore? The truth is, the mind is very powerful, but it is not always truthful. It tells stories about the future, stories about other people, stories about what might go wrong. And if we believe every one of those stories, we end up carrying heavy worries that life never asked us to carry. But the moment you begin to see these thoughts clearly, something beautiful begins to happen. The mind slowly loosens its grip. You stop fighting battles that exist only in imagination. You stop carrying problems that belong to tomorrow. And you begin returning to the only place where peace has ever truly lived. This moment, right here, right now, a Buddhist wisdom reminds us of a simple truth. Life becomes lighter the moment we stop resisting what we cannot control and stop fearing what has not yet happened. Most of the things we worry about will never arrive, but the peace we allow ourselves to feel in this moment is real. So instead of filling your mind with fear about tomorrow, allow yourself to be present today. Walk slowly, breathe deeply, let the mind rest for a while, because life is not meant to be lived inside endless worry. It is meant to be experienced, one peaceful moment at a time. And sometimes, the greatest freedom in life is simply realizing this. You don't need to carry every worry your mind creates.